Warframe now has almost 10 years under its belt, and with Soulframe, sometime in the near future, I hope there are some lessons that DE learns from this game and carries forward onto Soulframe. I like a lot of Warframe, and we've covered most of the positives here in the last like 5 or 6 videos, but I do want to talk about a few things that I hope Soulframe nails. The more that I see of Soulframe, the more it's looking like basically Warframe 2.0 or Warframe 2, and that's not a bad thing. I believe this gives them a fresh start without having to risk the changes that happened between D1 and D2. If you played Destiny 1, you remember the transition to Destiny 2 was tough. A lot of the lessons and the improvements that the community had like fought for during Destiny 1's lifespan were basically reset at the start of Destiny 2. It felt like beginning again for almost no reason. Now you look at Destiny 2 these days and you see, okay, this is a totally different game, and it's radically changed and improved in many ways from Destiny 1. I hope Soulframe doesn't go through something similar where we have to relearn Warframe like early day lessons. But this is a really big opportunity for them to get more people into the game. So these are just my opinions. Somebody who's played the game for a few hundred hours. I like Warframe, but I'm definitely not a veteran. So the veterans, please shout out with what you guys think in the description. These videos and your responses have been really fun to read. So, all right, Warframe is a bit of a Wikipedia game, honestly. They've had a huge reliance on content creators, building guides, and also the Wikipedia for players who want to go farther than just like the basic star chart. The game is very opaque. It doesn't do a great job of explaining itself to new players, and honestly, I think has scared away so many prospective Warframe people who, if they would just push past a little bit of a hump, they might fall into like that absolute like hooked state that many of us have with Warframe. I don't want to see Soulframe being another one of those kind of Wikipedia-style games where the player has to continually rely on outside resources in order to progress. There is a nice, healthy balance where, like, obviously, putting in effort gives you a sense of ownership, like that you had to earn your progress through either the star chart or getting difficult activities done. There is a balance. I'm not saying make it totally, like, casual, completely easy mode style, but I would like to see it improve that new player experience quite a bit. It's still rough. Like, honestly, even though they've had plenty of opportunities to go through it, there's so many bloated systems and weird disconnected grinds that just don't seem to make much of a difference. The additional thing I want to see them change is the difficulty curve. The movement in Warframe is so engaging. Like, this is why I like playing this game, is it's just chill to talk with you all right now and slide through a map and do things with other players. But the combat itself is not that engaging. Once you've built up a frame that's got decent mods, it just turns into 1 or 2 button nuke modes. And that to me feels sort of like cookie clicker. It doesn't give you a whole lot of sense of challenge when it comes to the actual progress or defeating tough enemies. Even the boss fights, them going back, reworking them, they don't come across in a meaningful way. Whereas, not to draw comparisons, but like Destiny has a legitimately cool combat curve with its PvE enemies. You're doing a hard tier raid, you're doing some challenging enemy that has mechanics. It really feels like you're having to adapt and be smart with your combat rather than just flying through a mission node as fast as possible with your group of like other frames that just nuke everything down. I do think that Warframe is always struggled with this, where the movement is so good, but they'll probably never be able to like fix the combat or make it more meaningful because it's just the core flavor of what this game is. It is Diablo third-person style stuff where you press buttons, things disappear, and only rarely do you need to go into your ship and craft a build that's going to be important. And that's the other lesson I hope that Soulframe learns from Warframe, is having cool and fun end game content. I wish Warframe could have raids in it. I know long ago, the 2 that were there and then removed, but they never just pushed for cool endgame activities like a dungeon or a raid. And again, I'm not just trying to make this like a Destiny comparison, because Destiny has so many problems of its own. But how many of you would want to go compete in a 6-player raid in Warframe if there was that improved combat loop, if there was some risk and reward to what you were doing beyond just how you build your frame and what weapons you're taking into things? That, and adding like a level of prestige to completing those activities, things that are visible to other players, be it titles or gear or just any sort of cool badge of honor for doing it, would be a massive motivator for people to continue playing the game, and honestly, I think motivate people to play season after season more often. Right now, the prestige comes from basically grinding all the things in the new seasons, which tend to be sort of disconnected farms. I don't want to see that many disconnected farms in Soulframe, and that would be like an immediate turnoff for me if it's a similar model. You progress through a star chart-esque thing, and then once you're done, it turns into collect everything. I would legitimately just sort of leave, you know? I wouldn't probably play too much more of Soulframe if that's going to be the case. Now, I do think the monetization side of Warframe is pretty good. You can debate it how you will, but let me explain. Like, the factor that I really enjoy is the fact that you can trade your in-game grind items for platinum with other players, and most of the game's items you can get with platinum. And I feel like it does it in a way that's not really egregious. Like, if you want to play this game for free, you can play Warframe for free and experience a huge portion of it. I don't feel like they've gated a lot of stuff behind paywall content stuff to the degree that other titles do these days. I know there's so much nuance in a monetization like talk, but I can just say, like, I love the fact that I can trade my items for platinum with other players. And that does lend itself to a cool in-game economy and a marketplace, and I hope that element continues. That does fuel, if managed correctly, I know there's periods of time where it hasn't been, like, if managed correctly, a very cool metagame within things. And finally, I just hope overall that it's a more rewarding game. Warframe is fantastic. Like, I've gotten a lot of good time out of it. But let's face it, the last maybe year and a half, 2 years, it hasn't changed a whole lot, and it does feel like the community isn't super stoked on the direction where it's going. Case in point, I don't believe that's really going to change. I mean, Warframe's future is probably... I don't know. Where do you see Warframe in 10 years? Is this game going to be on phones? Will the iPhone or Android 22 or something be running Warframe? And because it feels like if they got controls dialed for it, that this is probably where the game is going to go. And Warframe's going to be not the same. Everybody's going to migrate over to Soulframe. So overall, those are the main things I can think about. Like, Warframe does a lot of great stuff, but make it more accessible, less opaque, less of a wiki game, more rewarding at the end game, and probably a combat loop that is challenging, that's got a little bit more depth to it than just nuke this and nuke that and blow things up. And if you're like a new person who hasn't played Warframe, like, when you get into some of the harder nodes, a lot of it, players just have sick builds with awesome mods, and enemies are just cannon fodder. You're not really dealing with a lot of mechanical threats as much as you are like, okay, there's enough waves of these enemies who are going to take me out if I don't press, button number 2 on my frame or whatever. So, I know maybe this is the first, like, less positive Warframe vid we've done since I've came back to the game, but it really still, it's a lot of praise for this game. This was a very impressive title for when it came out. It's now just starting to show its age, and I hope the team is looking very closely at some of these new things moving forward. I'm excited for Soulframe and hoping that we're going to get the chance to play something with it. Just make sure the combat's a little bit different than this. That would be important to me. Could totally be wrong, but anyway, that's my thoughts. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you have an awesome start to your weekend. Shout out in the comments with your thoughts, and also if you drop in, like, your experience level, like what your MR is, or how long you've been playing the game. Maybe you started back in 2014. That would be really something I'm interested in. I know a lot of players find reward in the ambiguous, kind of opaque nature of the game, but I also think there's another side of the coin where it scares away so many potential people, and I want Soulframe to be a game that pulls in players from Final Fantasy or WoW or Destiny. These investment games have the opportunity to overlap with tons of different players, but Warframe just didn't quite nail it, I think, in the way that Soulframe can. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.